We do have a guest with us tonight. This is Doc over here. We'll be talking to him. Let's hear from Steven and get his take on it. He's right down below and see how what he has to say starting out.
Yeah, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. How are you today, Doc?
Can you hear him, Doc?
Yes. Sorry, I was taking a sip of water. Thank you, Stephen, for the introduction. Thank you, David, for your introduction as well. I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me.
You're welcome. So we investigated your property a couple of times in the past. It's been interesting to say the least. Each time we've been there. So if you could just give us some history on the property, so we know what's going on.
So, some brief history on the property. I mean, it hasn't really had a past that hasn't been tumultuous. There have been, to my understanding, Native American conflicts within the area, roughly around where this property is. There was a suicide close to the property. There has been a lot of happenings around the area, kind of consistent with the quote-unquote Dryden curse. Anybody who's watched any sort of information discovery could tell you all about that. But my personal experience on the property has been pretty tame, honestly, until we did the investigation. Both investigations. So really, that's a lot of my only experience. Other than the occasional misplaced object around the house, but I mean, that can be easily explained.
Right. And I just want to say, the property is beautiful. I love going there. I'm hoping to go back there here in the next couple weeks, with it getting warmer, to hang out with my friend Doc, walk the property, that kind of thing. So I looked into it a little bit in the area. I wasn't able to get a hold of the historian, unfortunately, which kind of sucks. But that's how it is sometimes. So I had found out that the area, being the Cayuga Nation area, the Haudenosaunee are a group of, I think, 6 nations, which is the Haudenosaunee means the people who build a house. The name refers to a confederation or alliance among 6 Native American nations. The Mohawk, the Oneida, the Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and Tuscarora, sorry. And the area was a big part of the Cayuga Nation. Conflict, obviously, between two different tribes. Until the treaty was reached was, I believe it said, the Onondaga and the Cayuga. And then back before then, when George Washington had told another person, what was his name? So General George Washington commissioned General John Sullivan and James Clinton to destroy the Cayugas. They were, not civilized people, blah, 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 this and that. That's the way they looked at it. And later on, the Haudenosaunee had become, the 6 nations had banded together, essentially. But they had, in 1794, to stop this, after some of the Cayugas were dispersed and scattered to Ohio, Canada, and Buffalo Creek. The ones that relocated later to Ohio now moved to the area of Oklahoma. The ones that went to Canada now reside in the Grand River Reservation at 6 Nations. And the other ones that stayed basically signed a treaty with Washington called the Treaty of Canandaigua. And that's how, their peace had finally brokered. But like Doc had said, it was a major conflict area. And for a while.
Thank you for listening to today's episode.
I guess let's start with how we started, and whoever wants to start there. I know, Doc, it's your property, so if you'd like to start on what you thought was a really good thing and what wasn't, and all the stuff that happened, and we can elaborate on that further.
So, quite honestly, I felt the entire investigation went well. I definitely wasn't expecting to run into any circumstances where we'd actually have unexplainable events. For instance, I mean, if you can remember where our first stop was, at the very bottom of the hill, where I said Site 1 was in TikTok, there's nothing out there. You guys can all confirm that there is nothing electrical out there. I mean, we all had cell phones, but
I think
the EMF took me by surprise.
So where we were sitting, and we had thought we were at the log, and we had thought that we were communicating with an indigenous person. I think this is when Stephen and Jim, a person who is not present on stream, one of our investigators, had seen the green will-o-wisp flare type thing. Correct, Stephen?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. So a few things were happening. That was on our second investigation, right? Because he didn't come with us on the first one.
Yep. Yeah. So we hit the K2 was going off. And for those who don't know what a K2 does, it reads EMF fields, and it'll light up the dots on the colors. If you've seen Doc play Phasmo, there's a K2 on that. If you've seen me play Phasmo with Ferret, there's a K2 meter on there. The K2 is probably one of my favorite pieces of equipment, but it was and like Doc had said, we were in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the woods, and this K2 was going off on cue when we were asking questions.
And if I remember correctly, at one point, whatever was answering our questions had insinuated that it was a child, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes. And that's funny you bring that up, because Stephen had just tried showing me a video from, I think, that area, and it will be on the audio podcast later on the website. He's going to try enhancing the audio so you can hear what sounds like a child voice in that section.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So to see all of our stuff, to get that podcast, everybody, that's I'm gonna type it in chat now, but it's.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Thank you for listening to today's episode.
So there's a few places you can go to it for the audio chat. So you can go to SoundCloud, and it'll be on our YouTube channel. It's Paranormal Hive, plus the new one that was set up, and that's the Paranormal Hive podcast. Even if you went to our website at paranormalhive.live, under the audio, under the home, it's going to be there to the SoundCloud.
So let's continue with going on from that. I know after that, and at this point, it was still fairly light out, where we had flashlights, but we really didn't need them at this point. So, Doc, if you want to continue with the walkthrough.
Absolutely. So, I mean, at this point, we kind of picked up and we hadn't picked up yet. I mean, we sat down there and we brought out the spirit box shortly after that, if I'm remembering correctly.
I believe so.
And we had started asking questions. We started to listen. And I do believe that this was before the flashlight. So we weren't asking yes or no questions to the depth we were before the flashlight. But during this time period, when we had started asking questions to the spirit box, we were getting answers, and 3 words kind of stuck out to me as a Dryden resident. They were all blood, curse, and sacrifice, which, I mean, you hear the 2 words blood and curse alone. If you're a denizen of Dryden, you already have a bad feeling about what else is going to come out of that box. It was interesting. beyond that point. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I can't remember what we used when because we used a couple of things at that time. I think
There really
Uh,
are
different.
Well, it's fun.
Yeah, it was like different ghost boxes we used, so I can't remember what we used.
I think it was something on the phone, Voxabus or whatever you had on your phone at the time. Oh, it might have been the SLS thing Jim has too. I don't remember.
Right, yeah, because I know he was using the SLS at that point. Yeah, I did have something on my phone, but I can't remember which one it was.
That was, I think it was like a little over a year ago now. So it's been a while since we've done the investigation, but us just now getting the podcast back up and going and us talking about different things and led to indigenous people and now Dryden and Doc's property, which, you know.
Yeah, and I don't think Lee was with us on the first one.
Nope.
I don't think he was.
No, Lee didn't get to go to either one. We got to get him up here so he can go one of these times with us.
Right.
So we had that voice box stuff going on, and after that, if you want to continue, sir.
Certainly didn't realize I was muted there. So yeah, I do believe after the spirit box, I mean, everybody was a little unnerved by that point. I mean, I was a little bit. I was taken aback, especially after hearing Curse. But I think that was when we decided to unscrew the flashlight just a hair and set it on a log in front of us, which I did find that log today. I went down and found it. But I mean, we were getting some pretty solid yes or no answers, if I remember correctly. I can't remember exactly what we asked, but I know that at some point one of the questions we had asked was this individual we were speaking with a child? And we did get a yes.
And going off of that, dealing with children's spirits is something I don't like to do, only because we never know, and Stephen and Lee will agree with this, I'm sure you will too, is you never know if it is a child or not. It's the one reason I do not like dealing with children's spirits or claims of children's spirits, because you never know. In this case, we still don't, especially what happened later. At this point, I think we had moved on from that indigenous person to a different individual. After this voice box stuff had happened, I think we had moved on and we're just walking. And I think the next part you're going to talk about is probably the most interesting and most terrifying moment I've ever had on an investigation.
We're talking about the walk now, yeah, our little walk of shame.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So at this point, I mean, now I didn't see it, but oh my goodness, what did you say the other gentleman's name was? Jim. I do believe it was either Jim or Steven that as we started to crest also over the hill, they saw something along the lines of a light out toward the pond area. So you remember where we were, and we started to crest over the hill, and if you look to the left, there's the pond.
Yep.
Somebody had mentioned that they saw a light, and I can't for the life of me remember who it was, but that night there was nobody else out there. I mean, we would have seen a light.
It may have been Jim. I remember as we were walking in the woods, I thought I seen a figure walk like in between the trees at one point. So it might have been Jim that seen the light.
Okay. All right. Well, we can clarify with that with Jim later.
Right.
But now both chats, at this point in time, it was shortly after somebody had said that they had saw the light. And let me tell you, I have lived in these forests as a child. Like, I have grown up in this forest. I have never seen darkness like I did that night before. That night before. It just became so unnaturally dark and quiet. The forest just went absolutely silent.
It really did.
It felt like you were in some sort of bubble where no light or any sound could penetrate through. That's the only way I can think to describe it. And it was to the point where flashlights weren't even penetrating well enough that we could see How far would you say, David? Like
I think
20 yards?
if that, it got to the point where we couldn't see probably anywhere from 20 to 15 to 20 yards in front of us, even with the flashlight.
Yeah, just absolutely bizarre. Like I said, I've been walking these forests for 30 odd years now, with and without flashlights, and I have never experienced what I would call such a crushing darkness. Like I'm not claustrophobic either, and it felt very claustrophobic.
It really did. It got to the point where it literally felt like we were being watched, followed, and just oppressed and pushed down on all at the same time with this darkness. It was intense. And this isn't the terrifying part, chat. It gets worse. I mean, this investigation was insanely, horrifyingly amazing. And when Doc tells you what he's about to tell you, you'll see what we mean.
Oh yeah, I saved the best part for last. Well, it's not last, but you know what I mean. So, chat, as we're making our way through the silent darkness, we start to meander around through the trees, through the muck, because it was, what was it, May? It was kind of slushy, but we were meandering through the woods and the muck. We crossed over a bridge into Site 2, probably, definitely. We pissed something off. But we crossed into Site 2, and I'm in the front of the group. Nobody else knows this forest, so here I am, leading these people through the forest. I don't have a flashlight. They've all got the flashlights. So we start to crest over the hill behind me in the TikTok at Site 2,
Yeah.
and suddenly...
So let me stop you there real quick. I was right behind Doc at this point, and what had happened was he stopped, I stopped, and we look at each other, and I go, Doc, did you just see that? And over off to our right, he goes, that thing standing right next to those trees. I said, yes, that's why I stopped. He goes, that's why I stopped too. And then this part happens. Go ahead.
Yes, all right, so obviously unnerved, we start to make our way over the hill behind me in TikTok. And I want you to keep the order of individuals in your mind as you see these. How many of there was there? 4 or 5?
There was you, myself. I think behind me was Jim or Steven.
Yeah.
It was either Jim or Steven, and then whoever wasn't behind, I think it was Jim, and then Steven, and then Steven's nephew.
Right.
Because your nephew went with us as well.
Correct.
So there were 5 of us, and that's the order. It was Doc, self, Jim, Steven, and then Steven's nephew.
Got it. Okay. So I want you to picture this line of individuals completely lost in the woods. We have no idea where we are. Even I, who's been walking these woods forever, was like, I'm just kind of winging it at this point. At some point, we have to get out of the woods, right, guys? So we go over the hill, and we cross under a fir tree. And I hear something fly over my head. And again, keep in mind that I'm in the front. So whatever came and went over my head from in front of me, there would have had to have been a pretty sizable individual to throw a rock that went over my head through the fir tree branch and land behind the group, because that's exactly what happened. And I hear somebody swear from behind me.
That was me swearing. This rock, chat, if you're watching the video, if you're seeing it on my stream, the rock was probably about...
Yeah, it was not a small rock. I mean, you're not going to have itty-bitty little toddlers running through the forest throwing this thing, because we did end up finding it. But it came from in front of me, so either I became the world's best baseball player overnight, or something in front of me threw it. Because it hit the tree branch above my head, hit the ground by either David or Jim, and then continued to roll down the hill.
Yeah, it landed right next to me. You heard the impact, saw the indent, and then found the rock from where it rolled.
Yeah, because I thought, what if you fell?
Yeah, because you could see it, as me too, at least when I did it, and I turned and I heard that, because I heard it hit the tree or whatever it was, and then when I turned to my left, I could see the aftermath of it rolling down just a little bit and then coming to a stop.
No, like Doc said, Chet, this thing had to have come from in front of him off to the left. After he and I had just seen this figure off to the right, standing next to a tree. So there's no one in front of us, like he was saying. There's no one in front of us, but then this rock. And this is the most terrifying part of my, So heading back wasn't an option because it was like a 2-hour hike back the direction we had come. The way we were going, it was the fastest way out because we were trying to end the night and this happened.
Yeah, it is about a 4-hour hike if you're actually trying to experience what is out there. So we were about halfway done. So we had 2 hours to go in either direction. I mean, we were pretty well stuck. And if something wants to get you in 2 hours, chances are, if you're discombobulated and you're out in the wilderness in the middle of the night, 2 hours is more than enough time. So it becomes a little bit of an issue. Do you mind if I make a segue real quick regarding Anne's visit to this area as well?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So when Anne came out, Anne is a medium chap.
So Anne is a friend of mine and a friend of Jim's. She is founder of a group that we're trying to do some work with. Her group is called Nighttime Paranormal. I'll put the info up later. But yeah, so Anne is a really good friend of mine.
Yes. And Anne is awesome. But what I wanted to do when she came out, this might be a little cheeky of me, but I didn't tell her what we experienced in any of these locations because I'm a little inquisitive. So I'm like, I'm going to get whatever answers I can get. And when I took her to this area specifically, like I didn't tell her that we were stopping there. I didn't tell her that we had stopped there on the ghost investigation, or I told her nothing. We immediately got to where the rock had landed and she looked at me and she said, I have to sit down. And I said, well, you're more than welcome to sit down. Are you all right? She said, there is an oppressive, heavy energy in this area, and I cannot shake it. It's hard for me to breathe. My legs are heavy. My arms are heavy. I can't go any further right now. I need to sit. And, we sat there for a while, and she began to tell me kind of what she was feeling. And she described this vortex of just negative energy in that area. Like, it was just incredibly oppressive to her. We took out her son's spirit box, but didn't really get any hits on it. But you could tell she was very unnerved by what she was feeling in that area.
Yeah, Anne she's a rune reader, like myself. She's a medium. She's a paranormal investigator, and she's a great lady. And for her to feel anything like that, she's told me about some of the stuff she's seen and she's dealt with. And so Stephen and I will agree on this. We don't necessarily use mediums or psychics in our investigations for the reason that we can't tell what they're feeling. Like we can't document their experience. It's not that we don't believe in some mediums or psychics. It's just that we can't tell. We can't document, and our main goal is to get out there and document and prove or disprove something's happening. But Anne is an amazing woman, so I 100% trust what she says.
Oh, I do too. You couldn't fake what I saw on her face. I mean, she was exhausted, and I mean, never mind that the hike is as long as it is, but she was having a rough time. I felt bad for her.
Yeah, I think that second investigation that we went on was completely different compared to the first one that we did with you. So I'm not surprised that she picked up anything actually on that one.
Yeah, it was stark contrast. I mean, the first investigation we found next to nothing.
Right. Just a couple knocks and whatnot, but other than that, there was nothing really. That second investigation we did really set it off. And I think when we go back we will definitely have to, as investigators, pay our respects to whatever's there, and let it know that we don't mean harm, and we're just trying to document history of what and whatnot. But going back to that investigation, I think this is after the rock incident. If you want to continue, because we did have a couple more things happen, not anything super major, but
Nothing as major as that, but I mean, probably about an hour from where we were. Did we go through the bog in that investigation, or was that the first one?
we did, because we were, and if you will, like, I'll continue at this part. So we had been walking a little while after that, and I remember Steven saying something went flying by his head too. I think it was a stick at one point. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steven.
Yeah, there was a couple of, actually, there might be in that audio that I'll put up, but I think it's in that same video that I'll extract the sound from. But I think you can hear something fly past me there, because I actually pointed out, because I heard it go straight past me.
Right. So we had got to the bog, and this bog area, if I recall, Doc said they had pulled a full bog mummy, pack mule team out of there or something like that.
Yeah, the entire team of mules, and I guess it had never been documented, which is a little odd considering you think you'd document if your entire team of mules was at the bottom of a bog.
Right, which you definitely would.
Makes me a little suspicious that there's more than mules in there and somebody's just not saying something.
So we had stopped at the bog, and we sat down and we were asking, questions, recorder sessions, EVP sessions, and whatnot. And at one point, I remember asking everybody to turn off their lights, because when you're in pitch black and you see black darker than the dark, something's there. So what had happened was, I was sitting down on a log next to this bog, and I was sitting there, and I turned my head because it felt like something had sat down next to me. No, and Steven and everybody else was off to the other side of me. I was the furthest off to the right, and it had felt like someone had sat on the log next to me. So I had felt someone had sat down next to me. I turned on my flashlight and turned really quickly, and full body apparition, full period clothing, there was someone sitting right next to me. So I fall backwards off this log because it startled the hell out of me. And they're like, "What the hell?" And I tell them what I'd just seen, and I think after that point is when it had calmed down and stopped for the most part. But that was intense.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting night when we went, for sure. Especially for my nephew, because that was his first one with us. So he'd never been there before. But it was definitely interesting. I remember the first time that we went all the way through, and we were just coming out towards the field there, and to our right we heard a big bang and something rustling in the trees there, and we all looked in that one area, but we didn't see anything at that time, and then we just carried on walking. But that second investigation definitely went up a notch or two for that stuff.
Or 7.
Right.
Yeah, compared to one knock versus an entire rock being thrown at somebody's head.
Right.
I mean, we went to 0 to 70 in a hot second.
Yeah, it did. It went pretty quick. As soon as we started hearing those things, they sort of escalated pretty quick after that.
So, Lee, you have not been on this investigation, and so this is a question kind of for you. How do you think you would have reacted to the rock and all this stuff?
I would have been freaked out a little bit. A rock, you said, this big?
It's probably about that big.
Yeah,
It was as big as my face almost.
It was pretty big. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it threw this branch that was above my head pretty roughly. I mean,
You're 100% sure It was not Bigfoot.
We don't know. We don't know.
So that's a whole other thing entirely, because
Yeah.
Doc
Well, I
has
don't
said
know what.
Doc has said that there are, I don't know if it's confirmed sightings or other cryptid sightings on the property as well. Correct?
Yes. Actually, Fee Nicole and I have had our own paranormal experiences on the property. She's just brought one to my attention. That she said maybe Doc can mention the Wendigo experiences we've had in one of the future streams. She says it also happened on the property. I thought it was just a spooky memory until I realized we had the exact same recollection of the event without ever talking about it for over a decade. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Fee Nicole, but this is roughly while we were walking through the woods. Now, Fee Nicole's my sister, for anybody that didn't know.
Gotcha.
She and I used to walk these woods all the time. Again, I haven't said it a million times in this podcast already, but we would used to be out past nighttime. I mean, your parents give you rules. How often do you listen? So we would just kind of walk around the property. Occasionally, we'd get back after dark, and we'd come in, we'd get warm, and then play World of Warcraft. But there were a couple times back coming from a bonfire or seeing it outside the bedroom window, there was this figure, and the only way I can think to describe it, and Nicole, correct me if I'm incorrect here, because this is how I remember it at this point in my life. This figure had a pure white face. Just imagine you're looking at the moon. It's reflective. It's that white. And as it shifts through the forest, that's all you're going to see. Now, that is how I remember that thing. And I can remember several bonfires where we would be sitting out there with our parents, and I'd look that direction. Yeah, blue-white glow, 7 feet at least, and, it just inside the wood line. And it's just slowly going across the wood line. I don't remember it as well as I used to, just because I was a teenager back then. But
So it sounds like
I do.
what Jim had seen, in a way. Maybe it was in a different area. If you've seen that light,
Yeah.
maybe it was that.
It could very well be. Fee Nicole's commenting again about around 7 feet at least, like it was its own light source. I don't think the moon was out that night. No, it was never. The moon was never out when we saw this. It would just always hang out in the hedgerow line, and you could see it on the other side of the bonfire. And it would be one thing if it was just one experience, but you'd see this thing almost, I would say once a month. Not like clockwork, but you'd see it on occasion, maybe once a month. But it would never, ever, ever leave the hedgerow. And you guys know the hedgerow.
Oh, yeah.
It was almost like that was a barrier for it. It would just never go any further than that.
So I hate to bring it up because I know you being of Native American descent, I know you're probably not going to talk about it, and I'm 100% okay with that. Could that potentially be a watcher?
I don't doubt it. You'll find I'm pretty new age when it comes to this stuff. I'll mention it all the time. It's all right.
So for those that don't know what a watcher is, it is something that the Native American shaman and or medicine person would do to protect the land from harm and stuff like that. And these are common in Native American lore and all that stuff, but the indigenous people will not talk about them. It's a bad omen too. And like Doc has said, he's new age about it, so he'll talk about it. Could it potentially be that?
Well, it's kind of interesting that you mention it, that it could be that, because I do believe you and I had talked about that prior. In fact, right after the first investigation, you had mentioned that you were having a slight feeling of uneasiness, even if we hadn't seen anything, and you'd kind of attributed it to a possible watcher. Now, the reason I'm not discounting that it could very well be, is just the simple fact that I hadn't had any negative paranormal experiences on this property in 20 odd years until the second investigation.
And for those that don't know, watchers, like I said, watchers are very protective of their land. And the reason I think that this had done all of this is because our investigator, Jim, is a practicing white witch. What the possibility there being that it could have felt his energy and gotten threatened by it. And I do have a tidbit for after the investigation what had happened, but this watcher, I believe, if that's what it is, and what had caused this stuff, because we don't know. We can't tell until we go back out there and we legit sit down and investigate further. That is my theory behind this and why it had reacted in a negative manner, because it felt bad.
Oh, Phoenical says, I don't believe what was there that night specifically was a watcher. I've had sketchbooks filled with the creature, and it definitely aligns with a Wendigo. But I'd absolutely believe there could be watchers out there.
Maybe both. Maybe more than one.
Right. So the Wendigo it's definitely something I don't want to mess with.
I don't either. That one I won't mention. I will not talk about that. I'm not that new age.
Right. They're not good creatures. That's for sure. But going on that negative vibe, after the investigation, the second I got home, okay, and my wife is somewhat of a sensitive. The second I got home, she looked at me and goes, something followed you home. I go, okay, whatever. I didn't think anything of it. And you're right, Belladonna, names do have power. But I didn't think anything of it and whatnot, because I've been investigating for, what did we say the other day, Stephen? Probably about
12 and a half, 13 years now.
Yeah, I've been investigating for nearly, I think I was doing it a little while before we got Stephen into our old group. So I've been investigating for about 14 years. And stuff attaching itself to me and following me home, whatever. I've had it happen when we went to Salem. Something followed us home. Not bad, but so. No, actually, it's my son's, like, at the time it was my son's, like, guardian.
Oh, gotcha.
So it definitely helped out there. But the next day, however, is when I actually took what my wife said seriously, because I don't normally zone out when I'm driving. Okay. I had zoned out to the point where I ran a stop sign. Luckily, I didn't get into an accident. And I was on the opposite side of the road that I thought I was on. Like, I was at the other end of the road that I thought I was on. And don't know how I got there. So my wife looks at me. I pull over. My wife goes, "Are you okay?" I go, "No, I don't know how we got here." She goes, "I told you. Something followed you home." And at that point, she had given me some obsidian, and it didn't affect me anymore since after I started carrying that obsidian. So it was definitely an interesting thing.
I've zoned out driving many times.
That's not a good thing. It's not a good thing, Lee.
No, I've done it. I did it once. I mean, I was on the opposite side of the road, and then I woke up before I went into a ditch. Another car's coming towards me.
Oh,
it was a long night.
What you're talking about is a skinwalker. Skinwalkers are shamans that have become corrupted. Wendigos are individuals who became corrupted by eating the flesh of other human beings, which is how they get twisted in nature.
Zombies.
Yeah, pretty much zombies.
Yes.
But the Skinwalker is the Sith Lord of Native American medicine men.
Yes.
Unlimited power. Right.
So, but the investigation as a whole, like I said, and they are, Ray, those skinwalkers down in Arizona are very prominent, hence Skinwalker Ranch, which is down there. And it's not a place I want to go to.
Why not?
Skinwalker Ranch, or would you like to deal with a Skinwalker, Lee?
I would love to go to Skinwalker Ranch. Personally, I would.
As someone with native ancestry, I will let you go, and I will gladly
you
sit
just-
back at the diner.
Right, you just stay there. I'll go.
You sit there. We both go. You can just laptop, chill out.
Yeah, I'll be right there with fat "I told you so"s when you get back.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So what happened? Dad? Not talking about it. I told you so.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about it anymore. Yeah, I freaking told you guys so. That's what. Yeah. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll finish my cheeseburger.
Right. I think they're doing a live stream from Skinwalker Ranch now, but I think you probably have to pay for it, I guess.
Well, you know, if I ever hit it rich through streaming, I'll consider going. But I have to become very wealthy through stream.
Right. There's a lot of cabling going through the woods.
Yes.
Make it a
I'm gonna
follow
need,
goal.
Yeah, I'll follow goal. I'll do a bit goal. I need 3 billion biddies, and then I'll go to Skinwalker Ranch.
So, chat, we're at the point where we usually die down and start heading out, but are there any questions for anybody in either chat? Doc has his chat up. I have my chat up. Any questions at all? I will. Any question at all, please feel free to ask.
Belladonna asks, can I ask a question to the White Witch of the group? Unfortunately, Jim is not with us today. He's a busy boy.
Yeah, if you ask the question, Bella, I can get it to him, and then I can pop in chat sometime when Doc is live and answer it for you, or you can message me, Dramatroll, on Twitch.
My chat's telling me I have to hydrate.
Yeah, mine just did too.
Hydrate people.
Hydrate.
Ray says, "Oh yeah, tomorrow's payday." Ray, do not give me 3 billion biddies. Or are you talking about the Pilk goal? Because I'm not too psyched about the Pilk goal either.
And I am somewhat of a practicing witch as well. I don't do it as much. I am more of the tarot/rune guy. But yeah, if you have what is the best way to protect your house from malicious spirits? Okay, so I can actually kind of answer this one. If you have, and this isn't a 100% fix, but it does help. If you have sage or Palo Santo, start in the center and go all around the house, windows open, stuff like that. Windows open, doors open. Go around sage. And then you're going to want to fill that negative, that empty energy, that empty space with positive energy, such as, burning a certain incense that you like, or music that makes you happy, stuff like that. In the corners of each room, a good thing to put down is some ash from dragon's blood. It's a stone.
We'll just go down the street and get some dragon's blood.
It's a stone. So
We'll just pop down the local store right now.
It's an incense of sorts.
Where'd you get this stuff from?
You can get it in Jim's shop behind the willows.
Mystical stores.
So any pagan supply shop should carry some dragon's blood, incense, Palo Santo sage. But you're going to want to put that in the corner of each room. And definitely do the outside as well. If you want to salt your windowsills and doors, do it after you sage so nothing can get back in. What I like to use, being Norse pagan, I use the Algiz, which is a rune of protection. And what I have started to, what I made in the past are door charms, and they're little circle discs that I've burnt the symbol into, and hanging those up definitely helped too.
Were you all done, David?
Yes.
Okay, now I completely agree with that, but as David said, it's not always 100%. So I'm going to give you another additional step to make sure that it is 100%. Now that same match that you chose to light the sage with, I want you to take that and just put it in the most flammable corner of your house. Now that is the most 100% surefire way to keep malicious spirits out of your house, because now there's no house to have malicious spirits in.
Don't burn your house down. Do not burn your house down.
I'm just saying, if it's really malicious, it's time to move.
It's probably not the best idea to do, but it'll work.
Yes, but for real, do not burn your house down.
Make sure you're out of the building first.
Yeah.
Then
In
burn
fact,
your house.
Run.
throw
Run
the
as
match
quick as you
in.
can.
And there you go.
Yeah, it's probably
House
not.
is no longer house.
That's not the best thing to do at all. No.
But the saging of the house, if you start to feel that negative energy come back, definitely sage again. And it, like I said, it's not a surefire way to 100% get rid of it, but it does help for a little while. And the salt will definitely help keep it out. If you, after you sage and push it out, you salt the windowsills and the doorways and whatnot.
It never hurts to ask nicely either.
Yes. So that's another thing. I'm a firm believer in sitting there and in telling this malicious spirit to, hey, this is my house. No.
Oh, hey Ray, thank you for the gifted sub. Look at that, Belladonna. Now you don't have to watch the ad anymore.
Yeah, eating sage donut, it's not, I'm sure you can use sage in cooking, sure. Trees to plant that would deter them, that's something I'll have to ask on, and I can get back to you.
You know, that actually begs a question from me. Now, eating sage, is that a way of deterring malicious spirits from your being?
Probably
I
not.
would not eat sage. Don't eat sage. It's poison.
It's not actually though. There are tons of recipes that you use sage in.
Yeah, to cook it,
Yeah, but
you'd have to cook it.
You need to cook it or boil it.
Oh yes, please don't eat raw sage, but I mean,
No, right, that's what I'm saying. Don't eat raw sage.
for the love of God, chat, please don't go eat raw sage.
Yeah. So if you're in a New Age pagan supply shop that supplies herbs and has herbs, always ask if they're food grade first. Because if they're not, chances are you're probably not going to want to eat it.
Well, anything is edible until it's
One.
not.
You just said not to eat sage.
Yeah, but you can have a little taste of it. You're not going to die.
So you gotta have a nibble.
I mean, even a rock is edible once, David.
This is true. But yes, chat. If you have any more questions, otherwise, I think we'll end it here. If you want to go back and listen to our crazy stories, like I said, I'm sure Doc will have this up as a video on his chat or his videos. It'll be up as a video on mine. It will also be posted to the Paranormal Hive YouTube after 24 hours of ending. It will be up on the Paranormal.Hive Live website 24 hours after ending. Other than that, I hope everybody has a great night. I can't wait to get back to Doc's property. Heck, maybe we can even live stream it now that I have a better phone, which will be super awesome, and we can have people in chat then. while we're doing the investigation.
Oh, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, Doc has TikTok live, or I don't think you can go live yet, though, can you, Doc?
Not yet. We're getting pretty close though.
Blow up his TikTok. I can.
Yeah, I think you need 1,000 followers to do that.
Yeah.
We're
That
getting
actually-
there.
Yeah. Ours is.
You do need 1,000.
Yeah. We can do live on TikTok.
So I can go live on my TikTok. Paranormal Hive can go live on theirs. And Ray, that is actually that's something we've talked about in the past, doing an investigation on Halloween at the property. But you can definitely get the vodcast/podcast from tonight on my channel, on the Paranormal Hive stuff, and all that good stuff. But everybody remember to have fun, be safe, and why be normal when you can be paranormal?
Thank you for listening.